Hey everyone, in today's video I'm finally going to be ranking all the eyeshadow palettes that I tried in 2024. I have 31 palettes that I'm going to be ranking in today's video. Now I didn't try a lot of eyeshadow in 2024. To be honest, I really don't play with a lot of eyeshadow. Since 2025 has started, I've only used, I think, one eyeshadow palette. And so, yeah, I don't really dabble into eyeshadow, but I'm trying to play with more eyeshadow this year. But 31 eyeshadow palettes are still a lot of palettes. I don't know how anybody could do more than that. I've seen people ranking over hundreds of eyeshadow palettes, and I'm just like, how do you get through so many palettes in 1 year? It's just crazy to me. But that is what we're going to be doing today. Before we get started though, if you're new here, hi, my name is April. I would hope that you would consider subscribing to my channel, and if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Coming in at number 31 and the worst eyeshadow palette that I tried is this one from Clio. This is the Napping Cheese palette. This is what it looks like. Now, I didn't like this palette because this did not give me enough depth and definition. These darker colors right here, these are the only two dark colors in the palette, and they're not dark enough. I didn't like the eyeshadow looks that I got. All the eyeshadow looks that I got from this palette were basically the same thing. I didn't like these as well because these are more of a peachy color, and I really don't like peachy tone eyeshadow on me. The only thing that I loved about this eyeshadow palette were the shimmers, but there's only 3 shimmers in this palette. So for that reason, that is why it's ranked at the bottom. Eyeshadow palettes that I'm going to talk about moving forward, they technically weren't bad palettes. They were just based off of personal preference and maybe color story. So I just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know. Number 31 was the worst of the worst. So coming in at number 30 is this quad from Tom Ford. This is in the color Tropical Dusk. Now I was so excited about this eyeshadow quad. I almost picked this up for full price, and I am so glad I did not pick this up for full price. I did end up finding it at the cosmetics company store, so I was able to get a deal off of this. The reason why I didn't like this was because mainly these two colors up here, the matte and the shimmer. The shimmer was lackluster. The matte was not pigmented enough for me. It kind of blended away to nothing. The dark shade was nice. The shimmer dark shade was good as well, but I just wanted more from this palette, and unfortunately it did not give it to me. Coming in at number 29, you guys might be a little bit surprised with this eyeshadow palette ranking so low in my countdown, but just hear me out a second, okay? This one is from YSL, and this is the Couture Mini Clutch. I have it in 100 Story Dolls. I think that's the name of this. Now, the packaging is beautiful. I love this packaging. I did buy this full price when it first came out here in America. I know it came out in Europe or somewhere overseas first, and then it came here. I traveled really far to get this quad. It was like a 2-hour drive. It was the middle of the week in rush hour traffic, so I went really far for this. Now, when I got it, I was so disappointed in this quad because they gave you cheap applicators. Those I just threw away. I was like, I'm not gonna do anything with these. But I gotta be really careful. I'm gonna have to not super glue this, hot glue this back together because this came apart. And that is so unacceptable. This was so expensive, and like I mentioned, I did get this full price as soon as it came out. And for this to happen, that is just a no-no for me. I was so mad and upset that this happened to me. There's only one shimmer in here, and then it doesn't stay open. There's one shimmer in here. This one's like a satin, and then these two are mattes. The shimmer in here almost feels like a topper. It's not pigmented enough for my liking. I wish it was more of a like shimmer than rather than a topper. Number 28 palette is from Danessa Myricks, and this is the Groundwork Defining Neutrals palette, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it looks like this. Now, I did get this in a Beautylish Lucky Bag. I don't love this necessarily for a few reasons. One, I don't like the eyeshadow pan sizes. I wish they were also flipped around this side. The bigger size is the cream, and then the mattes are the smaller size. I wish it was the other way around. And I could only really use this on my eyes. I try to use it for bronzer and contour and my eyebrows, and I didn't love the tones on me, so I have been using it for eyeshadow. And I still don't love it for eyeshadows because these crease really bad on my eyelids. I did try to use this black for like an eyeliner, and it just got everywhere. It was messy and I did not love it. And this is not cheap. I believe this is what, like $69. That's almost the price of a NATASHA DENONA eyeshadow palette. So for those reasons, I just did not love this. I know a lot of people did, and I'm glad it worked for them, but unfortunately it just did not work for me. My number 27 eyeshadow palette is another Tom Ford quad. It's this one right here, and this one is in Insolent Rose. Now the reason why I didn't like this one was because the topper here sucks. It was nothing special. The shimmer, again, nothing special about it. And the mattes were just blah. They were fine, but I want more definition with the two mattes that I got in this quad. For those reasons, I wouldn't pay $90 for this quad. As a matter of fact, to be honest, I wouldn't pay $90 for any of the eyeshadow quads that Tom Ford comes out with. I would just wait and find it at the cosmetics company store. But yeah, that is my number 27 palette, Insolent Rose. My number 26 palette is this one right here from NYX. This is the Ultimate Warms Neutral palette. This one was fine. There are other drugstore palettes that I like more than this. The shimmers, I wanted more from it. The mattes were just okay. Yeah, it was just a fine palette. It's not something that I would run out and get. Like I mentioned, there are other drugstores that I like more than this. My 25th palette is this one from Glamlight, and this is the Rick and Morty palette. I did find this at either a Marshalls or TJ Maxx. Now, the reason why I didn't love this palette is because, one, it's just a little bit too big for my liking, and two, the color story is a little bit too colorful for my preference, and I felt like the mattes were just okay. The shimmers, they were all different. They all felt different. Glamlight eyeshadow palettes, I feel like, are a hit and miss for me, but this one just was one of those palettes that were just not all that great. My 24th palette was such a disappointment. I wanted to love this palette so much, but it just fell off so much, and I'm so surprised because this person usually does really good eyeshadow palettes, but I am talking about NATASHA DENONA Roxa Rocha palette, however you want to say it. This is what it looks like. Now, I wanted this to be more purples. I don't like these reds, pinks over here. I didn't like the way it looked on my eyelids. And this Concord shade right here felt like a drugstore shimmer. It was so disappointing. This is not the great NATASHA DENONA quality that I know she has. So if you don't have NATASHA DENONA eyeshadow palette and you want to try it, don't get this one as your first palette, because I'm telling you, this is nothing like what she comes out with. She has better eyeshadow palettes in her collection. I have a few more in this ranking that come much higher in my ranking, but yeah, this one, oh, I'm so mad because I wanted to love it, but I just felt like it was almost borderline drugstore quality. My number 23 palette is from Nomad, and this is the YXC palette. It just looks like this. Now, there are two more palettes that came out in this collection that are ranked much higher. The only reason why this is ranked last place technically out of the three is because the color story. I don't like blue eyeshadow, and this was mainly blue on my eyes. I didn't really love the greens either. There are other colored greens that I like more than this. And yeah, I just didn't like the color story basically. And there's a lot of kick up from all three of the palettes that I'm going to talk about. Like I mentioned, it's just ranked off of color story. But I've heard a lot of people say that these mini like travel palettes aren't as good as the bigger eyeshadow palettes that they have, and I would disagree. I feel like these are good palettes. There's just a lot of kick up. So if you've been wanting to try an eyeshadow palette from Nomad, I would just go get one based off of the color story that you prefer and you like more. But I don't see a difference when it comes to quality. I feel like all the palettes that I've tried so far from Nomad just have a lot of kick up, but the quality is really good. 22 eyeshadow palette is from NATASHA DENONA, and this is the Mini Gold palette. Now, the reason why it's at number 22, there's nothing wrong with the quality. I just didn't really love the color story. And I wish that there was a lighter shimmer and a lighter matte color. I feel like these are either too dark or mid-tone. Coming in at number 21 is another Tom Ford quad, and this is the Smoky Quartz quad. Now, the reason why I ranked it where I ranked it is because I have to use other eyeshadow palettes with this. This is not a standalone palette, and I feel like I've used, it looks like I've used a lot, even though I haven't really used it all that often. I feel like I'm already getting dips in some of the pans, which I don't love, and I wish there was maybe one or two lighter colors. This is very dark, so just keep that in mind if you've been eyeing it, which this is a pretty older palette, but again, I got this at the cosmetics company store, so if you happen to see it there, just know that this is not going to be a standalone palette, and this is going to be pretty dark if you do use this alone. Oh, and this is the cream to powder formula. Okay guys, we're in the top 20 palettes. Coming in at number 20 is this one from Moira. This is called the Chasing Eternity Celestial Series palette. Just looks like this. This is just a basic neutral palette. Now, I didn't love it as much because I just felt like it was okay. There was nothing special about the formulas, maybe because of the color story too, but I just felt like the formula was just okay. I hear a lot of hype with Moira eyeshadow palettes, and I didn't get it. I just felt like it was just blah. You know what I mean? There are other more affordable palettes that I like a little bit more than this one. I do have other Moira palettes that I haven't tried yet, but hopefully I can find a palette from this brand that I'll love more than this. My number 19th palette is from YUCCA Beauty, and this is called the Desert Monsoon palette. It just looks like this. Now, I do prefer, I think it's called the Geodes palette over this one. It was just an okay palette. I don't love the color story. I'm not into blue, and this sunshade was just a little bit lackluster. Like I said, nothing wrong with it. I just prefer other palettes from this brand more than this one. Coming in at number 18 is this palette from Dior, and this is the Dior Backstage Smoky Essentials palette. It just looks like this. Now, this is my favorite Dior palette that I've tried so far from the brand. The mattes were good. They weren't great. The shimmers I didn't love so much. I do prefer the mattes in this palette, and the satins were just okay. But overall, I do like the looks that I got from this palette. It was a nice palette. I just wish it had a little bit more oomph and more excitement to it, because this is an expensive little palette. Coming in at number 17 is this palette right here from Glamlight and Disney. This is the Cinderella palette. This is what it looks like. This isn't a bad palette. I really did like it. I just had to rank it somewhere, and this is where it was ranked. I really love the neutral colors, and then the purples. Don't really love the blues, but you know, that's just personal preference. And then the gold is almost leaning a little bit too gold for me, but it is a really great palette. The black is also really good in this palette as well. Like I said, it just had to rank somewhere, and this is where it ended up ranking. The 16th palette is the other Nomad Air palette. This one's the Aui palette, A-U-H palette. I'm not 100% how to pronounce that, but this is what the color story looks like. Again, nothing wrong with it. It's really good. It's just the color story. I don't really love it. It's a little bit too bronze for my preference, but it wasn't bad. And again, it did have a lot of kick up, so that was mainly the only real con about these palettes, is that the kick up was just a little bit too much. But overall, not a bad palette. Number 15th palette is another Tom Ford quad, and this is Hazy Sensuality. Nothing wrong with this palette. This does remind me of Honeymoon. If I had to decide like which one I liked more, this one or Honeymoon, I think I like Honeymoon a little bit better. Nothing wrong with it. I just had to rank it somewhere, and this is where it ended up ranking. Number 14 is the last Nomad Air travel palette. This one is the OSL palette. It just looks like this. This one I liked out of the three that I got because of the color story. I just like colors like this. It's almost neutral, but it does have some silvers in it, but not too bad. I can get a good neutral look out of this. Again, it just had a lot of kick up, but I could look past that. Overall, it was a really good palette. I did like it. 13 is this mini Natasha Denona Rose palette. It just looks like this. This was good quality. The formula was good. The only thing I didn't really love was the color story, but that's personal preference. I wish it had a little bit more, but I did like the way the eye looks that I got from this little mini palette. Overall, not a bad palette. I just didn't love the color story as much. Coming in at number 12 is another mini eyeshadow palette from Natasha Denona. This one is the mini Zendon palette. Now, I like this little palette. I know a lot of people didn't like the bigger version of the Zendo palette. I think I said Zendo. It was nice. I like the colors and I like the looks that I got from this little palette. The only thing is the fourth shade right here, this one, is kind of a dud. It doesn't really have that much pigment to it, and yeah, I would have preferred something rather than this color, but overall it was a good palette. It was easy to work with and I really did like it. My number 11th palette is another Tom Ford quad. This is in the color Honeymoon. I like this. There's nothing bad that I could say about it. The only thing is I don't love the wet to dry. I do prefer the cream to powder, or I forgot what it's called. I think it's cream to powder, but I prefer that one a little bit more than the wet to dry. But yeah, not a bad quad. I really did enjoy this one. Okay guys, we are in the top 10 eyeshadow palettes of my ranking. Coming in at number 10 is another Tom Ford quad. This is in Luminaire de Hiver. I don't know 100% how to say it, but this is what it looks like. Nothing wrong with this. I really did like this. The only thing is I wish that this matte shade right here was a little bit more darker, like maybe a mid-tone color. But overall, this was a really good quad. I really did enjoy it. It just looked really pretty and elegant on my eyes, and I loved it. I was able to get a few looks from this quad. Number 9 is another eyeshadow quad from Tom Ford, and this is Daydream. Now, the only reason why this eyeshadow quad is not number 1, because you cannot get this anymore. I am so sorry. I did get this at a cosmetics company store. I think a couple years ago, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and I just barely started using it this year. I freaking love this quad from Tom Ford so much. If you could find this somewhere, maybe at the cosmetics company store, or what are those other, oh my god, I'm drawing a blank, but like reseller places, I would highly pick it up. Don't get it for too much, but if you can find it for a good price, I would definitely recommend it. I love purples. You know, this is another color story that I really do like. But yeah, if this was available, I would definitely put this at number 1. I love this one. Coming in at number 8 is this one from Glamlight. This is the Barbie palette, and this is what the color story looks like. I love this palette so much. The mattes were easy to work with. The shimmers were pigmented and beautiful on my eyelids. I normally don't like a colorful eyeshadow, but this one I was definitely able to work with and make it look nice on my eyelids. The quality, I mean, top notch. I absolutely love this. Nothing that I could say bad about this palette. And I also did find this either at Marshall's or TJ Maxx, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I got it for like $16.99. Such a deal. Like I said, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Number 7 is a little mini stack, and this is from Melt. This is the neutral brown stack, I believe, the mini stack. This I love. The quality is so good. The only thing I don't love about the color story is the shimmer in here. It's a little too gold for me. It looks like that. So that I don't love, but I love this so much. I went traveling with this so many times. You can't really tell, but this one I used. It's a little bit broken, but that's because I dropped it accidentally. But yeah, this is so nice. It goes from light to dark. It has a shimmer, even though I don't love the shimmer. The only thing I would say is that the packaging is a little cheap. It is cardboard, and it is kind of coming apart, and the stack doesn't really want to hold on that great. It's a little expensive, but if you can get this on a deal, I would highly recommend. They actually had this for 50% off, which was $15. I would pay that price. The $15 is a good price for this, but I just wish that the packaging was a little bit more sturdier, especially for this being a $30 stack. Coming in at number 6 is an oldie but goodie. I am talking about the Urban Decay Naked palette. Now, I don't think you could get it anymore. If you didn't get it, you missed out. I love this palette. Yes, it does remind me of 2016. The shimmers, they could have been better. The mattes were wonderful. I do wish there were more mattes in this palette, but overall, this was a really good palette. It was great quality. I like the eye looks that I got out of it, and they were so easy to work with. I am so glad that I did not miss out this time on getting this palette. I didn't get it the first time it came out, but I definitely didn't want to miss it this time. Okay, you guys, we are in the top 5 palettes. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think I have for the top 5 palettes? I would definitely love to know. But coming in at number 5 is this one from Blend Bunny Cosmetics, and this is the All Done Up palette. Let's start with this cover. I absolutely love the cover of this. I love the color of it. Love everything about this. So pretty. Then we open it up and this is what it looks like. I love how it goes from really light to really dark. You have a row of shimmers. You have a mid-tone section. There's just so much I could say about this palette that I love. Now, I'm not 100% sure if she's gonna get rid of this palette, which I hope she doesn't. I have noticed that she's getting rid of a lot of her good palettes, which I think that's kind of a mistake, but whatever, it is what it is. If you could get this palette still, I highly recommend getting it. The only thing that I don't love is the gold, and some of the shimmers down here are smoother than others, but I can get over that. But yeah, overall, this is a really nice palette. I really do like this one. Coming in at number 4 is another Blend Bunny Cosmetics. This is the Sugar and Grunge palette, and this is what the color story looks like. Again, I love how it's laid out. Really light to really dark. It has a mid-tone section and then the shimmers at the bottom. Can't say nothing wrong with this palette. The only thing is that you can't get this anymore, and that's not even her fault. It was a bunch of BS, but overall, I really did enjoy this palette, and I wish it was still available. Okay, guys, we are in my top 3 palettes. I am so excited to share. So the rest of these palettes, I absolutely love. I actually had them in a different order earlier, but then I switched it. But I am happy with the last 3 that I have and how I ranked them. So coming in at number 3 is this one from NATASHA DENONA, and this is the I Need a Warm palette. This is what the color story looks like. Now, this works beautiful. It's blendable. It's easy to work with. I can't say anything bad about the formula. The only thing I will say is that this multi-chrome or duochrome right here, it's blah. You can find better multi-chrome and duochromes from indie brands. This one is just mediocre. It's nothing special, and I do think this is more of a neutral color rather than a warm color story, but I personally love it. It's not so gold and copper, which I don't love gold color, so I'm glad this isn't a gold and copper and orangey color story. If you cover this right here, this is where you get the neutrals from, and then if you cover this is where you get your warms from. But yeah, overall, I really did like this palette, and yeah, it was just a beautiful palette. My number 2 palette in the ranking is another NATASHA DENONA palette, and this is the YUCCA palette. This is what the color story looks like. Again, great quality. I can't say anything bad about this palette. It worked beautiful. I like the looks that I got out of it. The only thing I didn't love was this color right here, but that's personal preference. I know a lot of people do like that color. I can make it work. I just wish there was something else instead of that, but overall, a really good palette, and I love the way this color looks. It kind of looks like orange and then like a soft yellow neon color, and then the green. Really beautiful palette. I did really enjoy this one. Alright, you guys, are you ready for my number 1 palette? Drum roll, please. Can you guys guess what it is? Coming in at number 1 is the NATASHA DENONA My Mini Dream palette. I loved everything about this little palette. I liked the cover of it. I like how it goes from a really light matte to a really dark matte. Then you have a mid-tone matte, and then you have a really light shimmer, and then a semi-dark shimmer, but not being too dark. It was easy to work with. Yes, I know it's a neutral color story, but I am a neutral lover. I loved everything about this little eyeshadow palette. I was gonna say quad, but it's not a quad. I just loved it. There's nothing that I could say wrong with this. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And this was the #1 palette for 2024. Alright, you guys, those were all the eyeshadow palettes that I tried in 2024. I'm so glad I'm done. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below what eyeshadow palettes you used in 2024. Did you love them? Did you not? Were there some palettes in here that you loved that I didn't, or vice versa? I would definitely love to know. But that is it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And don't forget, if you're not already subscribed, I would love if you would subscribe to my channel. And until the next time, I will catch you guys later. Bye.